Well, hey there, and welcome to another Belmethwin Minecraft tutorial. This is my take on a 114 iron farm. They switched up all the mechanics, they switched up how villages work, how villagers work, how iron golems spawn, everything. So I went ahead and, as you can see, I made a couple other attempts, and this is kind of taking what I learned from testing those two overnight and turning it into something that actually works. Well, I just tested for about 8 hours, and it's gonna do between 450 and 1,000 iron per hour. That's a lot of iron. Now, the reason that there's such a variance, 450 per hour or 1,000 per hour, is because whether or not you sleep through the night cycles makes a big difference. If you sleep through the night cycles, then it allows the game to hit the appropriate spawning times for the golems much more often in that hour. So if you're going to do this and you're going to be playing around in your world and sleeping through the night to avoid mobs, your iron farm is going to be more effective during that time. If you just leave it completely AFK overnight, you're going to get the 450 to 500 iron per hour, but that's still a pretty respectable amount. You know, you leave it overnight for 8 hours while you're sleeping, or 8 hours at about 500, you're looking at 4,000 iron. That's a lot of iron. You're gonna need a better storage system than I have down there, a double chest. But this, let's see, right now it's about 527, and this was last opened up about noon. That's a lot of iron. That is a lot of iron right there. Villagers now need an available workstation so they can choose a job. I chose the smithing block because you can't interact with it. It has no UI. That is literally the reason that I chose it, because it's easier to build with when you can't accidentally click on it while you're trying to place that glass block and open a UI. It's easier, and it doesn't matter what workstation block you use as long as you use a workstation that gives the villagers nearby it a job. You can see they're all blacksmiths of some sort. I'm not sure if it's armor smith or toolsmith. I haven't really traded with very many of them. This guy's still a nitwit, so apparently he doesn't have a bed, or he doesn't have a station. But in this farm, there are 2 layers connected by a staircase. Each layer has 51 beds. And as you can see, each of these beds has a person in it. So there's currently 102 villagers in here. There might even be an extra one because that guy doesn't seem to think he has a bed. I also placed in the center 2 blocks some bells. I did it on both levels, just so that it didn't really matter if they were bottlenecking at the stairs or not. They'd be able to gossip around a bell. All of the floors and blocks for the villager platforms are glass. Those need to be non-spawnable. Up here needs to be non-spawnable. The walls need to be non-spawnable so that they don't spawn half in and half out and get pushed in. The floors need to be non-spawnable, and also preferably only 3 blocks tall, because the bed takes up a half of the bottom block, and that should mean between the glass floor and the lack of height space, no iron golems can spawn in here. That part, very important. Use glass or another transparent non-spawnable block. I suppose you could get away with leaves. Leaves would work just as well, although they would be a little bit more sensitive and easier to break on accident. But that would also work. So the villagers, if they have a job which requires the bed and the crafting station, then at certain points in the day, like when they wake up and at about 8,900, 9,000 hours, somewhere in there, they like to gather around these bells and gossip. And the gossiping is what spawns the iron golems. They gossip about whether they have one and whether they have enough people to justify having one. And if enough of the gossips go around saying that there are not enough golems to appropriately protect all of these villagers, then they spawn a golem. And I believe that this farm takes pretty good advantage of them, because the iron golems, they spawn within a 16 by 16 by 16 radius of the villagers that are gossiping. And if they're gossiping at this bell, and even if the villager is right over here on this edge block, there's 1 and then 7. So this is a 7 wide path here. And that is so because iron golems can't spawn on this block or beyond, because of the limitations of the 16 by 16, because that 16 by 16 is the villager at the center of it, which means 8 blocks in either direction. So I counted the wall as 1 block, and then I went out an additional 7. And I went out 8 on the ends, but that was only because that made a 3 by 3 drop chute. That just happened to work out with the water. The center 2 blocks, I have water sources there and there in front of the sea lanterns, and going all the way across. And the idea for this is that once they spawn, you want the iron golems gone as fast as possible, so that another check to see if there's golems shows that there's none. So the golems get pushed this way, and then they get pushed over here, and then they are dropped right down out of any detectable block within the village. Then they get pushed over here to our 5 wide pathway so that they don't get bunched up and clog each other into this 5 by 6 killing chamber. It's just magma blocks. And I have a water source in that corner and a water source in that corner, and it washes all of the iron and all of the poppies and all of the anything else that falls in here, item drops, over to these hoppers. And occasionally some will shoot a little bit past the hoppers, so I decided to use 4 instead of just the 2. You know, if there's enough momentum and the hoppers are already backed up enough, it can happen. So the 4, it's an inexpensive little extra security measure. This can be built all the way up at sky level, or it can be built all the way down at bedrock. I do not think it matters. Both levels of this farm are the same. The only difference is the stairs start here and end here. That's literally it. As you can see, occasionally at night some of the villagers don't find a bed, but that is just because as they're jockeying around for position to get into a bed, sometimes they get pushed around, which means sometimes there's a villager that's on 2 different beds, like that one and that one. Yeah, they're a little derpy when they lay down, and they can be manipulated. Above the stairs, I did put a couple of blocks here, so because I saw that villagers were pushing each other off and taking a little fall damage. So just having those 3 blocks of glass right there, it completely prevents them falling down the stairs while still allowing them to come up the stairs. And for whatever reason, they tend to like they tend to like these 2 bells up here. Where is my bed? Let me have my bed. Now, I'm affectionately calling this my Iron Palace. I think it has kind of the looks of a palace. These blocks that are kind of spaced out right here, that is simply so that iron golems, which require a 2-block pathway, can't hop up on the edge. I could have just done a solid line of glass, but I decided this looked better, and it functions exactly the same. Not to mention the fact that it takes less resources, because if you build this in survival, you want to be able to use as few resources as possible. Now this is lit up much more than it needs to be, because all of these spawning platform blocks are covered by water, so nothing else is going to spawn on them except for the iron golems. We don't have to worry about other mobs, and as long as you use a non-spawnable block for the railing, it really doesn't matter how you configure it, as long as you make sure that the iron golems cannot step up over top of it. And as you can see, it clears the platform really quickly. The center of the ends, I did 8 water sources going straight down through there, and that's just enough to come over and meet our water source from over here and push the golems down. This glass box is 54 wide, or long, by 7 wide, and 1 block above the beds in each level, going all the way up and down on both sides. Just any old workstation that you feel like putting in there, whatever looks good to you. I just felt it was kind of poetic justice and a lot easier to use the smithing table, both because of the lack of a UI to accidentally click on when I'm placing the surrounding blocks, and because it's an iron farm. Why not have smithing? Smithing, iron, it all works together, right? But this was a lot of fun to make, and it took some time, as I'm sure anybody that's tinkered around with this kind of thing could tell you. But as you can see, they tend to group. They're trying to get upstairs, and they are actually making it upstairs. And for the most part, they're gossiping in groups up here, and a lot of the iron golems will spawn up here. Let me set the time. Time set. And we want 8900. Now, 8900 is not the magic time, but it is just before the magic time when all the golems will spawn. And you'll be able to see, yeah, there's 1, there's 2, oh, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I counted up to 25 at a time after these guys start dropping down, because they get cleared off the path pretty quickly. More will start spawning. Alright, that's the last of them. There's already another one spawning over there. And here is one that occasionally they seem to get stuck in a wall. See that guy? He is partially stuck in the wall, but he's gonna naturally wander, and he's not gonna naturally wander into the blocks. So he will eventually take off, just like that. There's so many in that 5x6 killing chamber that they can't all drop in. So you could make the killing chamber bigger, but honestly, once they get down to this level, they're no longer in the detection radius, and they're no longer a problem. I think I average about 25 golems per cycle, and then every morning when they wake up, they also spawn a few. And you know, sleeping through the night makes this cycle happen more often. There's another 3. And even the ones that spawn on those water sources will eventually get picked up and moved, oftentimes very quickly, but sometimes it takes a few seconds. And now, we'll take a look, and yeah, the last available space is taken up. So let's get rid of some of this stuff we don't care about. Now, for those of you keeping track, that one little segment of time was worth like 4 stacks of iron. Now, you can do that about every 10 minutes, and that's not including the morning spawns. That's a pretty decent amount of iron. And I'm actually thinking about making a version 2 where I double the amount of platforms up here and double the amount of villagers. So that may be coming up in a video soon to come. If any other mobs get inside this, it's no big deal. They're gonna wash along just like the iron golems. They're gonna land on the magma blocks, and either the iron golems are going to kill them, or the magma blocks are. Either way, doesn't matter to us. Other than that, you're going to want to make sure that there's some sort of disposal system in your item collection that gets rid of rotten flesh and bones and the occasional stuff like that, just so it doesn't clog up your system. That's my take on a 114 iron golem farm. It does get you like 450 iron per hour if you're just AFKing, or up to 1,000 iron, because you're doubling it and taking away all the nights, which is half of a day. So if you're actively sleeping through the night, you are going to double that 450 to 500 and get your 1,000. And it's that easy. I don't need to have any of this lit up. I don't need to use sea lanterns. You don't even necessarily need to use glass for all the outside parts. I just did because I liked the looks and because they're definitely not spawnable. So I hope everybody enjoyed our take on 114 Iron Golem Farm using the new villager spawning mechanics. By the way, little side note, lots of cats spawn around here as well. And occasionally you get a wandering trader that gets caught up and killed in the kill chamber down there, which is free leads, honestly. Hopefully everybody is able to build this in your worlds and give it a try. And if you can come up with any improvements, or you see anything that is stopping me from getting even more efficient spawns, let me know down in the comments, and I'll make a video about it, about the improvement. I'll add it to the farm, and I'll definitely give credit where credit's due, because that's the kind of channel we are. I hope to see everybody enjoying the crap out of the 114 release on Tuesday when it releases on April 23rd. Everybody, let's get psyched, because that has been a long time coming. I hope everybody has a good night.